welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today I am doing the How Well Do I Know My Books tag. This tag was originally created by Jessie the Reader. I saw Holly from Lovely Day Holly do this tag like a long time ago and had actually saved it to like ideas of something I wanted to do because it's really fun in that there are questions about the books on your bookshelves and you kind of have to like randomly pick books and then answer these questions about it. So what I ended up doing is I went through all of my fiction bookshelves. I did not go through the nonfiction shelves. I did not go through my daughter's shelves. I just went through the shelves in here that are classics and middle grade, and then the books that are in my room, which are like fantasy, sci-fi, YA, historical fiction, and mystery are all in my bedroom. So I did all of those shelves. That was 35 shelves total. So for each question, I did a random number generator for which shelf it was going to be on, and then a random number generator of the number of books on that shelf, and then selected from there. The couple of times that I cheated on this is there are a couple questions that are about hardbacks in particular. So if the number it landed on was not actually a hardback, I picked the closest book that was a hardback. And there's a couple of questions that ask about like the rating you gave this book or something, when did you read this book, questions like that. So for those, if it landed on a book that I hadn't read, I chose the book closest to it that I'd read. Lastly, there are a couple of books in here that have questions surrounding like what the cover of the book looks like or something like that. So for those, because I knew it was those questions in advance, I pulled the book off and like turned it upside down so I didn't look at the cover. I promise I didn't cheat on this. So yeah, so there's 28 questions. And I've already selected all my books. They're right over here. So I'm gonna go through and just answer the questions with these books from my bookshelves and see how well do I actually know the books that I own. Okay, so question number one, all of these are supposed to be without looking anything up. So without looking it up, tell us what the book's about. So for this, I chose shelf number 8, book number 2, and that was The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Other Stories by Washington Irving. So there's plenty of stories in here, but the longest story that Washington Irving wrote was The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, I'm pretty sure. Even Rip Van Winkle is quite a bit shorter than that. And then most of his other short stories are shorter than that. So The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is about a school teacher named Ichabod Crane, and he is teaching in this area. He's super awkward and super weird, but he falls in love with the richest and most lovely girl in town, and then he kind of has a rival with someone else, and there's kind of like some spooky elements to it, but I would say it's much more funny than it is spooky, and the writing is just exquisite. Like Legend of Sleepy Hollow is one of my favorites. I just love it. Okay, question number 2 is without looking it up, what is the genre of this book? So it ended up being shelf number 20, book number 9, which is On the Far Side of the Mountain by Jean Craighead George. I actually have not read this. I've read My Side of the Mountain, and this is, I think, the 3rd book in that series. And so if it's like the other books, I would assume that this is a survival story. So the first book is about a boy who gets dropped off in the woods in this mountain by his father to spend an X amount of time like surviving in the woods. So I would assume that this is similar. So let's see what he's doing. Okay, this is a little bit different. It is a middle grade also. I didn't say that, but I think that's obvious. This is a little bit different in the fact that this takes 2 years after the first book, and his younger sister is living in a treehouse of her own, and then I guess his sister disappears, so he has to leave and track her across the mountains to find her. So I guess there's probably survival elements to it, but it sounds like that might not be the sole focus. Question number 3 is without looking, tell us what is on the cover. So for this one, I was on shelf 10, book number 17. And this book is Joy in the Morning by Betty Smith. And I'm looking at the spine, but I can't see the cover right now. This, I believe that the cover that I have of this book has a yellow flower on it. And that's pretty much all I remember about it. I haven't read it. Okay, I was wrong. It actually has a daisy. It's a yellow cover, a yellow center, not a yellow flower. So I was off a little bit, but I did remember there being a flower on the cover of this. This is the same author who wrote A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. So I've wanted to read this one for a while. I'm really curious about it. Okay, question number 4 is, without looking, tell us the main character's name. This ended up being shelf number 18, book number 14, and it was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. So the main character's name is Charlie. That was a hard one. Question number 5 is, without looking, tell us the side character's name. And for this one, I ended up with shelf 6, book 13, which was Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis. I can't remember any side character's name. I remember Ransom, I think, is the main character. This is C.S. Lewis's space trilogy. And this is the first book. So I believe in this book, they end up going to Mars. The second book takes place on Venus and the third book on Earth. So I think Ransom's the main character. And then there's a couple of bad guys and I don't remember their names. I wonder if it says on the back. Okay, it doesn't say on the back. I had to look through. Ransom is the main character and it looks like Weston is the guy I think I was thinking about, who's like more the bad guy. And Divine, I think those are like two of the side characters that are named in this particular book. Question number 6 is, without looking, guess how many pages are in this book, and it counts as a win if you come within 25 pages of the total. So this book, Esperanza Rising, was shelf 25, book 22. It's so hard to tell with middle grade. This looks thicker than some of the middle grades I've seen. I am going to guess 305. I am not even close. 262, and that's not within 25 pages. I lose. Okay, so question number 7 is, without looking, what rating did you give this book? This was shelf 6, book 19. I might have fudged this because I had to choose a book that I'd actually read. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. I read this book a couple of years ago and I feel like I gave it 4 stars because the writing is super vivid and I think it does a really good job of exploring human nature. However, it's really disturbing also. So it wasn't really like 5 stars for me because it is disturbing. But it's also one of those books that I feel like is assigned way too young to kids in school. I did not read it in school, so I didn't have the same visceral reaction that some people do when they had to read it. They're forced to read it at a really young age where it's kind of maybe a bit of a scarring book. I think this is like a book that should be like college age and up, in my opinion. But let's look on Goodreads and see if I'm right. Okay, so looking at Goodreads, I did give it 4 stars on Goodreads, but my review says that I ultimately landed on a 3.5 and rounded up to 4. So I guess I was off a little bit. Okay, question number 8 is, without looking, where does this book take place? This came from shelf 12, book 20. That book is The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. This book takes place generally in Middle Earth, if you don't want to get more specific. More specifically, it takes place more in Mordor, and then Minas Tirith are probably main locations, and then towards the end more the Shire. But I mean, you're all over. You're not only in those 2 locations, so Middle Earth. Question number 9, without looking it up, what are the parents' names? I feel like this is a weird question. I ended up getting shelf 34, book 7, which was The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan. This is in the Percy Jackson, the first trilogy. I think it's book 2. So I don't remember what Percy's mom's name is. It probably tells us in book 1, but his dad is Poseidon. So do I get half a point for that? I don't know. Okay, the next couple of questions are about hardbacks. So question number 10 is, without looking, what color is the book under the dust jacket? The book that I ended up for that one was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I have actually read this edition. I'm not totally sure what color this is. I would guess gray, but I don't know. No, absolutely not. Green and like a beige color. So fail. Guess that's proof that I'm not cheating though. The next question number 11, is for a hardback as well. Without looking, is there anything on the book, an image or an imprint? For this book, I ended up with Amal Unbound by Aisha Saeed. And I am feeling like there's probably not a design under this. I'm thinking that there's probably just like the color and then like the title, but we'll see. It would be pretty if it had like flowers or butterflies on it. No design. So I was right there. The last hardback question is, without looking, what is the color of the font on the spine? And for this book, I ended up with Tolkien's The Hobbit. This is the Alan Lee illustrated edition, which is just incredible anyway, because Alan Lee's illustrations are phenomenal. So this is like my favorite edition of The Hobbit. I am gonna guess that it's gold lettering on the spine. I don't know for sure, but oh yeah, it just seemed to fit with the gold lettering on the cover. All right, moving on to question number 13, which is, without looking, do the chapters have titles or are they just numbered? This was on shelf 20, book 19, and it is Benjamin West and His Cat Grimalkin by Marguerite Henry. I am thinking that because this is an older book, I actually haven't read this specific Marguerite Henry book, though I've read quite a few of hers. I am guessing that it's numbered just because it's older, but we'll see. Nope, there are titles and numbers. Okay, the next couple of books are ones that have to do with the cover. So they are turned down, so I can't see the covers. So the first question is, does the cover have an award on it? And the book is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I'll show you the spine. I am going to guess that it doesn't have an award on the front. It doesn't. It just says 90th Anniversary Classic. So no award. The next question asks if there are author blurbs on the cover, and the one for this one is The Door in the Wall, and I'm gonna say that it doesn't. This is an older book, although this is a newer edition of an older book, so I don't know. Let's see. Nope, no author blurbs, but it is a Newbery winner. The last question is actually about the back of the book, and it asks, without looking, does the back of the book have a description of the book? So for that one, we have Notes from the Underground by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I'm gonna guess that this does have a description just based on the fact that it's a paperback, and it does. So I haven't read this one yet. It's actually one of his few like well-known, I was gonna say full novels, but this is really short. It's more like a novella, but it's one of the few of his that I haven't read. I haven't read a lot of his short stories still, but in terms of like what are considered some of his major works, this is one of the few that I haven't read yet. Okay, from here on out, I can stop being so careful with covers because the rest of them are not questions like that. So the next one is, without looking, does this book have an author photo? So this was from shelf 9, book number 19, and it is The Doctor's Sweetheart and Other Stories by Ellen Montgomery. I don't think that any of her books that I own have her picture in them, so I'm gonna say no. And there is not. There is no picture of her in here. So good job, Tiffany. Question number 18 is, without looking, is this author using a pen name? So that book is E.T.A. Hoffman's Tales of Hoffman. I don't think that this is a pen name. I seriously doubt it. I feel like those are his actual initials and name. Okay, it looks like that is not a pen name. But he did change his full name. It was Ernest Theodor Wilhelm Hoffman, but then he changed Wilhelm to Amadeus out of admiration for Mozart. So, fun fact about E.T.A. Hoffman. Question number 19 is, what POV is this book written in? This was shelf 5, book 15, and that is Marianne by Daphne du Maurier. And I'm trying to think, but I'm pretty sure all the Daphne du Maurier books I have read are written in third person, past tense if you want to get specific, but I'm pretty sure third person. So let's see, I haven't read this one yet. Yes, this is third person. The first sentence says, years later, when she had gone and was no longer part of their lives, the thing they remembered about her was her smile. Question number 20 is, without looking, are there any pictures or graphics in this book? For that, I went to shelf 10, book 13. And that book is The Tin Flute by Gabrielle Roy. I seriously doubt there are pictures in this, but I haven't read it, so we'll see. Nope, no pictures or graphics, so got one right. Question number 21 is, without looking, does this book have an epilogue? The book chosen for that was The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury. I believe this is a collection of short stories. So it probably doesn't need to have an epilogue unless it's something that he tried to like loop together, like the Martian Chronicles, where he tried to make them together. I don't know if that has an epilogue either. I'm just saying, I feel like his stories don't usually have an epilogue anyway, the ones that I've read. So I'm gonna say no. I'm wrong. There's an epilogue. So on the flip side, question number 22 is, without looking, does this book have a prologue? That one is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I don't think this has a prologue. I'm not counting introductions. That does not count, like written by someone else. But a prologue, I'm pretty sure it just starts with, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Yep, I feel better. Question number 23 is, without looking, is this book signed? Not very many of my books are signed, so it's probably gonna be a no. But Beverly Cleary's Socks. I love this book. Most people know about like Henry Huggins and Ramona Quimby, but if you haven't read Socks, I love Socks. I don't think this is signed. I'll make sure. No, it's not signed. I don't have any signed Beverly Cleary books. Question number 24 is, without looking, do the page numbers have a design above or below them, or not at all? So this was shelf 16, book 3, which is the Millie Molly Mandy storybook. I have only read a little bit of this. My daughter's read this repetitively, so I don't know. I'm gonna say that it doesn't have a design, but let's see. It doesn't. The page numbers are just there at the bottom, nothing fancy. So kind of similarly, question number 25 asks, do the chapter headings have designs on them? And the book that got chosen for this is Mostly Harmless by Douglas Adams. This is one of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books, and I'm gonna say that they don't. The only one that I've read is the first book, and I don't think that that had designs around the chapter titles. Nope, they're pretty plain. Question number 26 is, without looking, are the acknowledgements in the front or the back of the book? So this was shelf 32, book 6, which is Cards on the Table by Agatha Christie. I don't think there are acknowledgements in this at all. I don't think Agatha Christie had acknowledgements in her books that I remember. So let's see. Okay, no, there is a foreword, but I don't think it has any acknowledgements. It doesn't. It has stuff about the story itself and the kind of like card game that they're playing, I think. Question number 27 is, without looking, what year was this book published? We ended up with shelf 19, book 19, which was kind of funny. So, Enchanted Air by Margarita Engel. I have read this. I'm not sure what year it was published. It's set in her childhood, I think in like 70s or something like that, with her being the daughter of a Cuban immigrant. So, I'm gonna guess that this book was written in like definitely the 2000s, but I'm trying to decide. I feel like it was probably after 2010. So I'm gonna guess like 2016, and that's a total guess because I really don't remember looking. 2015, I was so close. I almost said 2015. Then I'm like, no, that's too round of a number. I need to pick something else. Last question, question number 28. Without looking, what year did you read this book in? I ended up with shelf number 1 for this, book number 4. And that's Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, which this has like the dust jacket is like the movie cover, but it's super pretty underneath. It's not like that. Anyways, not that you care. But what year did I read this? I'm pretty sure I read this in 2021. I think it was the first Christmas that we lived here that I read it. And I had never read the full book. I'd seen the 90s movie multiple times. I'd read a children's edition that was abridged, but I'd never read the full book until that year. So I could be wrong. It could be 2022, but I think it's 2021. So I'm going to check on Goodreads and see. Yes, I read it in December of 2021. Highly recommend if you haven't read Little Women, first of all, to read it. And second of all, to read it at Christmas time. It's just perfect. Well, there you have it. I don't think I know my books as well as I could, but some of them I did okay on. So I don't know. I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. How well do you think you know your bookshelves? Because I think part of my problem with this is there was a lot of books that I wasn't as familiar with. Like some of them where it said, tell like your rating for this book or when you read this book, like those ones I made sure that those were books I had previously read. But a lot of the books that are on my bookshelves are ones that I have picked up thrifting or at stores or whatever, because my library is pretty limited in what I can get there. So I have a lot of books that are unread on my shelves. In fact, I would say the majority of the books that I own are unread. So I'm curious if it's the same for you, or if you tend to only purchase books that you have already read and you love and you know you'd want to reread, or you want a physical copy of, or do you have like a pretty big unread physical TBR? So based on that, how do you think you would do with this tag? If you have a channel, I would love it if you do this, and let me know if you do, because I'd love to see how other people do. Maybe they'll do as badly as me and I'll feel better about myself. Or maybe I'll just be like, yeah, no, I'm just not good at this. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please click like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me, and I will see you again next time.